Welcome to the Safety in Numbers podcast. I'm your hostess, Sheila Hansen. This episode is on classroom management, and this is episode 11. Classroom management may make you think of when you've lost your cool with your students, or it may make you think of how you manage grading 120 papers in a day. Classroom management is difficult to teach. It's often better taught in an apprentice-mentor type relationship. I had an amazing mentor who helped me learn how to do a lot of my classroom management. It is something that takes patience and self-reflection to hone your skills. This episode will focus on the student connection part and how that piece is the biggest determiner of good classroom management. What is classroom management? What's meant by that term? Well, basically, it's your method of running your own classroom. It includes boundaries, rules, discipline, but it also includes how to relax and have fun while you're in a classroom in an appropriate manner. It determines how your class feels to you and your students. Think about a restaurant that has good management versus a restaurant that has bad management. The restaurant with bad management may have really good food, but it gets to your table late, or they mix up your order, or things just don't go right, and you're always going in not really knowing what's expected. Whereas a restaurant that has good management, you go in and the food's okay, but you know they're going to get your order right, you know it's going to be to your table when your food is hot and it's on time, and the staff there is super friendly. Which restaurant would you rather go to? I'd rather go to one in which I know what's expected. Good classroom management, your students will always know what's expected. I warn you, however, there is no one-size-fits-all formula for classroom management. If you read it in a book that this works every single time, throw that book out because they're lying to you. There is no management system that's going to work every single time. And there are hundreds of management systems that, when they are applied consistently, are going to work really well for you. You have to pick one that works with your personality. You, however, have to be the one that creates your own management system, and it has to fit you and the level of your students. So a kindergarten teacher might use one management system, and a 7th grade teacher is going to use something different just because of the maturity level of the students. You can use published models, and they work great, but the details and the tweaks have to be up to you because your classroom has to fit your personality. In this episode, I will focus on how to establish that connection with your students, and in doing so, you naturally will establish your leadership through establishing that connection. How many people have heard this saying? You don't have to like me, but you must respect me. I've heard many teachers say this, and, well, I'm going to go against the mainstream in this thought. And it's not really mainstream anymore, but when I started teaching and for like the next several years after that, I heard it a lot. And, well, just like Jesus overturned the tables in the temple, I'm going to flip the script on this one because it's just not true. You don't have to like me, but you must respect me. That's not true. Think about it. How many people that you don't like do you respect? Think right now of somebody that you don't like. Do you have respect for them? I don't. Respect cannot be demanded. It has to be earned. Think about somebody who doesn't deserve respect, who demands it. It will either result in a fearful presence, so that person's presence in the room will create fear, and so people will respect them in order to avoid being hurt by them, or they will generate a foolish presence because everybody knows that they are not a respectable person who is demanding respect. So this is one of those teachers where all the students are laughing about them behind their back constantly because they haven't earned their respect, but they demanded it. Now, I understand the thought of respect for the position or the office, not the person. So thinking about like the presidency, the office of the President of the United States is a big office, and it deserves respect because whoever is in that position has got a lot on their shoulders. Whether you like them or not, the office of the President is a respectable position. You might not like the person that's in it, but because they're the president, There are certain systems of decorum that you follow because of that. However, in a classroom, you are not the president. I know, you might not have known this, but you're not the president in your own classroom. And most students these days were not raised with that thought in mind. You must respect me. It's not taught a lot these days, so students are unfamiliar with it. So you might be thinking that they're going to respect you just because you're the teacher. Get that thought out of your mind. It's not likely to happen. So in talking about management, why am I talking about connecting with the students? Doesn't that have to do with the student relationship rather than the management aspect? Well, your student relationship is what's going to determine your management aspect. Because if you don't have a connection with your students or a positive connection with your students, then what you will end up with is an adversarial relationship between you and your students. And this is not a good way to run a class, because if you set up an adversarial relationship with your students, then one person wins and the other person loses. So if you win, yay, the students lose. Do you want your students to become losers in your own classroom? And if you lose, then the students win and they gain control of the whole classroom. Again, that's not a good teacher-student connection. You don't want that adversarial, competitive aspect between the two of you. You want to be connected in a partnership type relationship. But with a good student connection, both sides benefit, both sides win. It's like one thing I've learned in my years of tutoring. If I sit across the table from somebody, it's harder to teach them. It feels like I'm teaching at them, and they feel like they're being lectured. So I sit next to them side by side. So we are on the same side of the table. We are looking at everything the same direction. And it's a much more, let me help you. I'm here to walk with you through this. Both sides benefit. It's a good connection. It's the best way to establish yourself in a classroom. Having a good positive student connection helps in many ways. Number one, it takes away fear from the student. Especially in math classes, there's a natural fear that comes with failing at math. It also sets you as the teacher, it sets you up for success in managing your students because you've got a good connection with them. And a connected student feels safe and comfortable in your presence. So put yourself in your student's shoes. Would you want you as a teacher? Think about it. What were you like in 7th grade? One thing that I know is different about today's classroom, and math doesn't change. Math has been the same for hundreds and thousands of years. But the classroom has changed. It's not even like it was 10 years. It's not even like it was 5 years ago. 2020 changed a lot of things drastically. But even before that, there were some changes coming down the line that didn't help teachers in the classroom very much at all. In fact, it took away a lot of support from teachers in classrooms. Number one, many administrators are not strong in discipline anymore. It used to be that you didn't want to get sent to the principal. There are a lot of administrators now that are not really good at discipline. In fact, I had an administrator, and actually this was in the very beginning of my teaching, whom if you sent the student to the office, they would send them back and tell the student that, that teacher should never have sent you down for that. That's something that even if the administrator doesn't agree with your reasoning for it, they shouldn't send the student back. They should instead talk with you privately and discuss a way of doing things. But that's not happening a lot. Also, there are many parents who will refuse to allow their students to experience natural consequences. So they don't want little Junior to experience any negative emotions whatsoever. So little Junior never learns how to deal with negative emotion because mom and dad are always swooping in and carrying them off and saying, you should never be sad, little child. Yes, little children should be sad, and they should be mad, and they should be disappointed, and their parents should coach them through how to deal with those emotions, because those are emotions you're going to experience all your life. When they get into your classroom and things start to go wrong, then the student doesn't know how to handle it, because parents have always handled all of the negative emotions. There are many schools who have policies such that a disruptive student is not allowed to be removed from the classroom. And some schools have policies that don't allow you to single out a student and address only their behavior. You can only address the entire classroom behavior. These are facts that you can work on behind the scenes, like with your administration. But right now in your classroom, you have to work with it or you have to work around it. And building a good connection with your students is the best way to do it. So how do you connect with your students? I mean, I'm a lot older than my students. Of course, when I started teaching, I wasn't a lot older than my students. But I wanted to be the authority figure, but I also wanted to know them as human beings. So here are a few quick and easy suggestions. First of all, learn their names as quickly as you possibly can. I used to make this little kind of fun guarantee that I would know all of their names by the second day of school, and I worked really hard at it. And if I was not able to say the correct name, then the student got a homework pass or something from my little prize box. I only had to give away like 3 or 4 things over the first 20 years of my teaching. The last 5 years of my teaching, I had to stop doing the guarantee because as you age, it's harder to do. In fact, I'm wondering if that part of my brain is kind of burnt out because remembering people's names now, it's hard. But learn their names as quickly as possible and use their name when you're speaking to them. Like, Sheila, I saw that you have a Blues shirt on. That's great. They're my favorite hockey team too. But you use the name to connect with the student. They will perk up when they hear their name. Make sure you can pronounce their name correctly. Ask them if you're unsure about how to pronounce their names. Some of the names are foreign names from other countries or from other parts of the United States, and they are pronounced differently. And some parents spell names uniquely, and so it's hard to know how to pronounce it. So if you're not sure, just say, did I pronounce that correctly? Or can you give me the correct pronunciation? I remember my very first year teaching. In my classroom, I had a student, and we had one of those bubble cards for attendance, so you bubbled them in if they were absent. And I read down all of the names, and I got to one, and I stopped. And I just looked at it, and I was like, and the girl, her family was from Indonesia. And so they had foreign names that were really difficult to pronounce. And I looked at it, and I went, and she goes, oh, that's me. You can call me Medi. And over the next few weeks, though, I had her teach me how to say her first name and her last name correctly. And it took me a little bit because it was long. She had like 14 letters in her first name and I think 17 in the last name. But I made it a point to do it. And that meant a lot to her that I wasn't afraid to acknowledge that she had a culture that was not the same as mine. Next thing you can do is to greet them at the door every single day that you possibly can. You use their name when you greet them, like, hi Sheila, good to see you today. If you've forgotten their name, just simply say, hey, oh my goodness, remind me of your name. Just be upfront and honest. Students can understand that people forget. And if they don't understand, say, I've got 120 students' names to learn, and I am sorry, but your name is, it's slipping on me right now. And make a joke of it. Then ask them questions about themselves that don't have anything to do with school. Like, hey Sheila, are you going to be on the basketball team this year? Are you running track? Are you going to be in my chess club? Just talk to them about things that are not outside of your subject area and have short little conversations with them at the door. Notice things that they like and then ask them about it. So if they have a t-shirt that's got certain characters on it, or if they have different colored hair every week, and I was one kid that was like that, and I was like, oh, that's a great color. What color do you think you're going to do next week? Oh, I'm thinking of doing stripes and blah, blah, blah. I don't really like color that's not natural, but they did, and it was a part of their life, and so I asked them about it, and we would have positive conversations about it. Always talk friendly and with concern. So if they were absent, say, Sheila, you were gone yesterday. Is everything okay? Were you sick? Make sure that you notice that they're back in school that day. Students who have chronic absences often have a lot of anxiety around school. So if you notice that they were gone, that means a lot to them, that you're paying attention to who they are and that something may have happened. Have that conversation. Keep positive communication with parents. So I always emailed all of my parents in the first week of school, And I would ask them to please send me a little short introduction about your child. So then they could tell me about everything that they wanted to brag on about their child or any concerns that they might have. And then if I noticed the child did something that I thought was really memorable, I would shoot the parents a quick little email like, I saw Sheila today, somebody dropped all of their stuff and she stopped and helped them pick up everybody's stuff. And I just noticed that she's a very kind and caring person. I would send emails home like that to parents, and parents, especially in middle school, adolescent parents, love to hear when their child is doing something good, because oftentimes those are the rebellious years and all they hear is the negative and the bad. And so when they hear something coming from school that is positive, it's a good thing. You also need to make sure you keep an appropriate distance. There have been some student teachers that I've seen in the past that try to be their students' pals, and they want to be the student's best friend. That's not an appropriate relationship. That's not an appropriate connection with a student from a teacher. Becoming too close will make your students uncomfortable, and there's also an unbalanced power dynamic that can cause you to be guilty of harassment or other things because you are the teacher. You are not their peer. You have power over those students because of your position. You can't be their friend. Just like a boss can't be the friend of the people that they're managing. The relationship changes. So consider that. And there's also the age gap in the education world. You are much older than them. So you cannot be a friend to a student. Another way to connect with your students is to just have fun. Be goofy. Enjoy what you teach and how you teach it. Show them what you enjoy. Be nerdy. I love to nerd out on all of the nerdy math stuff. And they thought it was hilarious. None of them really thought it was anything, but they thought the way that I enjoyed it was funny and was fun. If you make a mistake, own up to it with some humor. And be like, oh, I called you by the wrong name. It's that old lady brain again. Can't get it out. I can't get it to work. Being funny to let them know that people make mistakes. And when a kid sees that you are comfortable with your own humanity of making mistakes, then they don't feel like they're in danger of being annihilated when they make a mistake. They learn how to own up to a mistake and do it with fun and let it go. Moving on with their life. The difference between being friendly versus being a friend. Being friendly means that you are favorably disposed and you are not antagonistic. Being a friend means you are a peer without authority over someone. If you're friendly, then you use kind words. You're pleasant. You're respectful. If you're a friend, then you are social equals. And you share personal struggles, and you also share secrets. There should never be secrets between teachers and students. There should never be secrets between teachers and students. That is a danger zone. If a student shares something with you and they say, don't tell anyone, you have to remember you are a mandated reporter. And if there is some abuse or something going on at home, you have to report it. If the student talks to you about something that makes you uncomfortable, you probably should talk to the counselor, the administration, and probably that student's parents. But there should never be secrets between the teacher and the student. That's why you are your student's teacher, who is a friendly, positive authority figure. You are not your student's friend because you are not their peer. There is an unbalanced power dynamic that has to be there because of your age difference and your job. You have power over the student. You can't be their friend. There's also the thought that you can catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. That just means being positive and fun is a much better way to connect with a student. There is a parable that's called the parable between the north wind and the sun. And the north wind tries to blow a guy's coat off, and the harder the north wind blows, the tighter the man holds on to his coat. So the sun comes out and just shines super bright, and the man takes his coat off naturally just because of the sun's awesomeness. So be your own awesome self. That brings people closer to you. You're more likely to get them to follow you and to take risks in your class if you shine brightly. Remain in control of your emotions at all times. If you lose it, model how to apologize for inappropriate behaviors. There have been times when I have snapped at a student and said something rude, and I immediately stopped and I said, "I'm so sorry. That was terribly rude of me. It probably made you feel belittled, and I apologize. That was the wrong thing to do." That's the 4-part apology. Sometimes I will give a context like, I'm just really tired today and I just had a really negative interaction with somebody. I apologize for taking it out on you. That was wrong. Connection is the beginning of leadership. It's like you're teaching a puppy. Like this little guy. You're teaching a puppy. You have to first bond with the little guy first. And then you model good behaviors. And I just woke him up from his nap. Let me put you back down so you can go back to sleep. Here you go. That's Wally. Your puppy has to bond with you, and you have to show that you are the leader of the pack in order to have your puppy learn how to behave appropriately. When you connect appropriately with your students, you establish your style of leadership. What kind of leader are you? What kind of leader do you want to be? I've thought of 3 different kinds. There are probably others, and you could probably break these down. But there's the follow me leader, the one who says, "Hey, watch me, and then you try it." Then there's the coach, the one that's on the sidelines saying, "This is the plan. Now you try it. Do it again, do it again, do it again." This was my style of leadership. I was more of a coach. And then you have the sergeants. And some people do the sergeant really, really well. And they connect with their students really well. And when they're connected, the sergeant role becomes less scary and threatening as it can be. I have seen people use the sergeant style very well, very effectively. Wouldn't have worked for me because that's not my style. Establishing strong leadership is important for what you will be asking your students to do. Especially in things like a math class or a reading class, you're asking them to risk trying hard and failing. And for some kids, this we talked about in the unreachable student, sometimes that is the most difficult thing to do, is to risk failing in front of other people or just proving to yourself that you can't do it. They have to trust whoever is in charge in order to do that. Leaders also model behaviors and discuss failures, not as demerits, but as learning opportunities. There was one thing that I said over and over and over again in the last 5 years in my teaching, was that whoever asks the most questions is the smartest person in the room, because they're the one that gets the information that they need. There might be somebody over here that's sitting quietly looking like they know everything, but they really don't understand, but they don't say anything. So then they do all their homework wrong. And then there's somebody over here who's constantly raising their hand and saying, "Miss Hanson, did you do that because of this? Or why did you do that? I thought you should do this." And they're asking questions. And so I tried to get my students to understand that the smarter you are, the more questions you ask, because you get the information you need. You know what information you're lacking, and you're able to get it. Thanks for watching. In the next episode, we are going to be discussing reaching out to your coworkers and administration to set up a chain of support when you have students who misbehave. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in class.